Hello, hello. Well, today I'm going to talk to you about my last 30 games and just kind of a really quick recap of where I am. This is mainly for myself, not really so much for you. Then I'm going to talk about strategy for team tournaments. And before you go too much further into this video, if you don't know how team tournaments work, please read the description that I'm going to put in this that's going to go over the basic format for a team tournament. Now, my position for the last 30 games, early on, I think it was around my 10th game mark, I decided I wanted to go Assassination Casters of Kalista and Ron. And over the last 20 games of me mostly testing that, I've determined that I really like Ron because he has the dice fixing, the vectors, and the control that I want. Kalista is also really good, and the combination of them is great into, say, Grymkin and Crix. But Kalista, her assassinations usually rely on boosted fives hitting for finishing blows on, say, Banshee or Hydras. And I haven't liked it. I haven't liked the dice math. It hasn't felt certain. It felt like I was going to invest my entire battle group, including everything Kalista was going to do, on an assassination run that may or may not happen, and then I was going to go down on attrition. I mean, I like the options there, and this might sound whiny because when it works, it's like, hey, I just won the game on an assassination attempt where the opponent felt like pressured into being in a certain position with their caster that wasn't going to be relevant, so they put them out there on a risk, and Kalista just dropped their Focus or Fury, and Hydra Banshee combo killed them. But I don't know. Just hasn't done it for me. Really like Ron, Kalista, iffy about. So now I'm looking for a pair to go with Ron. I really like Ron. I really like where he's at. I'm looking at Vyros 2 in Forges, and I'm looking at Alara 2 in either Shadows or Defenders. I'm also considering Assyria. Raven and Goreshade are the new hotness. I'm not really too crazy about them or jumping on that bandwagon. I think they're a fad that's going to wear off. And don't get me, they're really good. I just think their effectiveness is going to be dropping, and by the time I master them and am doing really well with them, everyone's going to know what they do and be familiar with them. Whereas, say, something like Ron, you can know what Ron does, but he just has so much capability that even though if you know what he does, it's still hard to prevent. The power is in Ron's court. So yeah, I'm just going to get some games in with Vyros 2 Forges, Alara 2 Shadows, and Alara 2 Defenders. So that pretty much wraps up where I'm going. That's my goals for the next 10 games, is to find and test my new partner for Ron. So now let's talk about team tournament. I'm going to go over the basic strategy of before lists have been even submitted to the team tournament. General strategy is you want to skew things. A team tournament is not like a singles tournament. A singles tournament, you bring things that's going to cover 80 or 90% of the field because you don't want to go into round 2 or 3, run into one of those 10% lists that you just can't cover and just get stopped dead in your tracks. Team tournaments, you want to cover about 70% of the field and be okay having some bad matchups and just know that your team captain can keep you away from them. Unless a team has like 3 bad matchups for you, then you're just screwed. And now why you want to do this is, let's say one team goes skewed and one team goes normal. The team captain can dodge the matchups they don't want in the early phases, and then in the last 2 or 3 picks, you start getting forced. And if it's planned correctly, the player with the skewed player is going to get 2 really good matchups, where those things you wanted to avoid with your 80 or 90%er lists that are just brought for singles tournaments that cover 80 or 90% of the field, that 10 or 20% that you don't want to see, it has a way of finding itself against you in the last, if you're one of the last pairings and the team captain has done it correctly. And that's because usually those boogeyman are the skews. Those are the things that people are bringing into these team tournaments. They're bringing the big name, scary 9 Slayer spam lists that you just don't want to see across the field, and you have weird answers for, or the Osram Gun Bunny spam. There's a lot of those in there. And those skewed tournament teams are going to be able to create advantages for themselves if they do the team pairing process correctly. And what that means is if you bring 5 singles tournaments lists, 2 of them might fall into really bad matchups. And that's really rough because it's just playing down. So how we approach this is I encourage people to skew, and I encourage people to know the list they are bringing and know what their list is going to be bad and good into. If I do not have the correct data for what someone is going to be good or bad into, I cannot drop them correctly. And we do this by building charts. The top row is the players on my team. The left row is the players on, I make one of these for every single team in the team tournament. I'm going to use Power Creep because they're pretty interesting. And yeah, I make one of these charts. Green is, I feel like I've got a better than average matchup into them. Yellow means it's an average matchup. Red means I want to dodge it. Orange is it's not the greatest matchup. It's worse than 50-50. And we get these charts, and then from these charts, I make drop plans. I have 2 different sets of drop plans, and then each one of the drop plans is variance based on if I'm first team or second team. So the first set of drop plans is we're going to win this tournament at all costs. The second set of drop plans is we're going to have a lot of fun at this tournament. And the difference is if we're going to win this tournament at all costs, I'm looking at this thinking, Remy, my Signar player, has 3 reds and only 1 green. And green into something that Theo, we can mostly cover. Besides Christian, and just because Christian doesn't know what Crucible Guard does, we're pretty good into Crucible Guard, and he's got lots of reds, so he's pretty much going to be thrown away. That's not going to be fun for him. I'm not going to focus on getting him a bad matchup, but it's going to create the best set of matches towards the end of the game, towards the end of the pairing process for me. That's not very fun, but it's more successful. If I'm going to be successful, or if I'm going to have a lot of fun with this, I look at this and think, okay, I do not want to get Remy, and I do not want to get Mitchell and TJ any other reds. I do not want any other red drops, and I'm going to do my drop plan so that they don't have any of those reds. And how I'll do that is, if I'm first team, I'll put someone like TJ out on the table first. And you'll notice that TJ, Remy, and Mitchell have a lot of problems with the 2 ret players. So TJ is going to go out on the table first. Whichever one, whatever they drop, I am not going to pick Steve for ret. No matter what, he is not going to get a red. This is the first team drop strategy. However, because TJ is going to be my first team drop, he needs to be absolutely sure that those yellows and greens are not actually reds. If there are 2 reds here, and we don't know it, and we think one of them is a yellow or a green, and we drop him first, he might get paired against both reds, and then I have no choice but to choose a red for him. So as long as this chart is accurate, I can do the single red drop strategy, where you pick someone on your team that has a single red, you drop them first, and then no matter what, you don't choose that red, and he just dodges that red. He is never going to get into that red. It is impossible. Whereas if you leave him towards the end of the tournament, or the end of the pairing process, they might choose that into him, and I might not get a choice since we're first team. So now that TJ is covered, hopefully they dropped 1 ret player. If not, that makes things a little bit difficult for us. But we're just going to go off this is the first team drop plan. Whatever comes out, if a ret player came out with TJ, we did not choose that ret player. And that ret player will be left over on the table. Now is the time to drop Connor and Christian and get that ret player taken care of without reds. Then they're going to choose one or the other. And whatever's left over, they're going to drop 2 people in. Hopefully it's the ret player. If it's not, then we're going to go. That ret player is going to be saved into the final picks, and no matter what, we're going to get a red. In this situation, it's impossible to dodge the red, but you can try and prevent it. You can avoid it. I mean, it's not impossible. That's a bad way of describing it. If they do their drops correctly, it is impossible to dodge the red, assuming they think it is the same reds that I think it is. Because they can hold one of their guys till the very end, and then they choose the last 2 pairs, and that will put us into a red. That is just going to happen, and that's part of this kind of skewing process. We brought some generalist lists and we brought some skews. Hopefully along that in that process, we get some greens to balance out for the reds for the team. Second team draw plan is a little bit easier. They put someone out, and then we react to it. If they don't put a rep player, then we put some of our guys that are bad into the rep players to just try and get them into non-rep player drops. And this ret player is metaphorical for whatever your reds are. Ret isn't always a red for us. It's just in this situation with Steve and Hank, it was for Remy, Mitchell, and TJ. Just the way kind of things worked out based on what we talked about. I guess what I'm getting at is you can play these scenarios out in your head for each one of the teams, and you can find a drop plan that creates the least number of reds or no reds at all, and also gets you the most greens and yellows. And skewing your lists helps with that. Every time I do this, every year I'm a team captain, I find more and more things to put into this list. One of my flaws with the way I did my charts and my drop plans this year was that skill level did not come into play as much as it should. In this, Mitchell and Remy are pretty new. Very new, matter of fact. I think Mitchell has 2 months of experience and Remy has about 2 months of experience. They are very, very new to this game. We're taking them because it's a blast. It's a great team tournament. It's a great environment. And you can just get a ton of games with a ton of feedback and a lot of peer reviewing. But because they haven't played the game very long, they haven't seen a lot of the tricks that are out there. They aren't aware of most of the casters and what they do and the models. And there's a lot of, I need to take that into account when I'm filling out their sheets. I filled them out and they filled them out and we talked them out based on what their models are going to be good into and what their caster and what their lists are going to be good into. Not whether or not the skill levels are going to match up. Hank is very, very good. He is known to be a very good player. So we should be trying to get him, and the charts kind of agree with this in this situation, but not always. We should be trying to get him into our 2 skilled players of me, Connor, and Christian Taft. And that's what we should be trying to do, or we should be trying to feed an unskilled player to, or a lower skilled player to him, and just to count on the loss, which is no fun at all. And I hate doing tournaments that way, and I haven't ever done it that way, and I don't want to do it that way. But that is a strategy. That is a thing. So going into next year's, my drop plan will include skill levels, and I will talk with people and other teams that have played these players, and I will figure out rough skill levels and assign my guys kind of skill levels and try and also add that into my drop plan as a matching strategy. Let me know what you guys think. I really like team tournaments. I really like the plans for them. It's so much fun. It is just an absolute blast. We come together as a group. We do all kinds of crazy and fun stuff. And just the discussion before the team tournament is fantastic. Everyone coming together, thinking about it. You learn so much about what's good and bad and what people disagree with you on. And it's fantastic. I highly recommend. Thank you for watching, and let me know what you guys think.